The horns weren't unusual. They rarely are in Lagos. But that day, their rhythm broke. A dissonant pattern. Then the reason revealed itself. Two sleek black SUVs easing to a halt beneath the underbridge. The sun glared down, unforgiving as ever, but for once the heat wasn't what burned. On the cracked pavement sat a woman, wrapped in time and threadbare fabric. Her wrapper, once bright, now faded into earth tones. She clutched a plastic bowl that had seen more rejection than coins. Her eyes were tired in the way that only long years and longer prayers could produce. But there was still something in them. A kindness that hadn't surrendered. The rear door opened. Two men stepped out. Not the kind of men one expects to find under a bridge. Tall, clean, built from tailored fabric and self-made power. Their shoes were polished, their expressions guarded. And yet, the moment their eyes found her, something shifted. Even the security detail paused. "Mama," the first one said. She looked up. Her gaze didn't sharpen. It softened. Recognition doesn't always scream. Sometimes it breathes. The second man, already on his knees, said the words they had carried across oceans. "It's us, Jacob and Joshua." The bowl slipped. Plastic clattered against concrete. The coins inside it fell like a tiny metallic storm. Everything stopped. The city, for just a moment, lost its sound. Her hands shook. Her lips parted. And then her body leaned forward, not an embrace, but collapse. Joshua caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was too light. Her breath too faint. She had given too much for too long, and it showed. "Make way," Jacob shouted, cradling her as if the right posture could reverse years. The SUVs opened like jaws. The street swallowed their departure. And Lagos resumed its usual roar. Years earlier, in a village too small for ambition and too poor for mercy, a radio had crackled with the news. An aircraft bound for Nigeria had vanished. Two boys, aged 10, listened in silence as their world unraveled. Their parents were on that flight. There were no survivors. Nothing made sense after that. Grief came first, then their uncle Namdi. Namdi didn't cry. He calculated. He swept into their home like a banker closing an overdraft. Cabinets opened. Furniture disappeared. What couldn't be sold was broken. He said it was his right. He said boys shouldn't question men. Then one hot afternoon, with the sky too bright to mourn under, Namdi closed the gate behind him. Permanently. The boys stood outside with one nylon bag between them. No plan. No idea. Only each other. That night under the bridge was their first taste of the world without shelter. The pavement was cold, the air heavy. Jacob pressed his lips together to stop them from trembling. Joshua counted passing buses to distract from hunger. They learned the rules quickly. Never sleep with both shoes off. Don't run unless someone shouts. And never, ever expect kindness. They also learned that prayers said under bridges sound different. Not louder, just more honest. Amanda didn't enter their lives with fanfare. She was selling bananas. A widow. A mother once. Now a woman with a basket and dignity, walking through a market where everyone had an opinion and no one had time. She saw the twins. Noticed how they didn't steal. Just stared. And asked. "Please, Auntie," Jacob had said. "We just want to eat." She didn't flinch. Didn't scan for a trap. She crouched. "What are your names?" "Jacob and Joshua." "Where are your parents?" The answers came in fragments. The plane. The uncle. The bridge. Amanda listened. And somewhere between the syllables, she broke. Not visibly. Just internally, like a seam coming undone. Then she reached into her basket and made a decision. "If God gives me one room and one basket," she said, "I can still share both." Her house was mud-walled and honest. A single room. A lantern. A bed she didn't mind giving up. The boys ate. Carefully at first. Then like it might vanish. In the morning, Amanda set rules. No stealing. No lying. School before everything. "My house is small," she said, "but my heart isn't." And they believed her. The roof leaked. The landlord complained. The basket never got lighter, but Amanda kept walking. The twins swept floors, peeled bananas, and memorized multiplication tables. They studied. Hard. Chalk on slates, books on laps, dreams in pencil margins. When an NGO came looking for students to sponsor, the boys didn't hesitate. The tests were hard. The stakes harder. When the SUV came for them, Amanda stood in her best wrapper, the one she usually saved for weddings or funerals. She hugged them, kissed their foreheads, and said she wouldn't cry. She did. Quietly, after the car had vanished into dust. Time passed as it always does. Banana sales dropped. Amanda's health dropped faster. The landlord didn't. Eventually, she left the mud house with a wrapper, a Bible, and a bowl. The bridge welcomed her back. At night, she prayed for nothing grand. Just one small wish. Let me see what they became. That's all. Meanwhile, across oceans, Jacob and Joshua became. They studied computer science, wrote code that solved real problems, won internships, launched platforms. They didn't spin like children who had never had. They saved like orphans who knew how fast comfort could vanish. And still, every holiday, they searched. Numbers failed. Letters returned. So they came home. 2 men, 2 passports, 1 promise. We go back. We find her. The village barely remembered them. The landlord remembered Amanda, though. She left. We don't know where. The twins left with nothing. Again. Until, by chance or fate, they saw her. A shape beneath the bridge. A wrapper. A bowl. Jacob said, "Stop." Joshua said, "Reverse." Time folded. She lifted her face. And the world changed. When they reached the hospital, Amanda was barely conscious. The doctors moved quickly. Jacob and Joshua sat in silence. Grown men, but still boys, waiting. Finally, the doctor came. "She'll live," he said. "But she needs care. Food. Stability. And family." That last word lingered. They nodded. They would give her all 3. Amanda woke slowly. The hospital smelled sterile, but the hands holding hers were warm. "Mama," Joshua said. "We found you." She blinked, then smiled. "I prayed God would let me see what you became," she whispered. Jacob shook his head. "You will see more than that." And she did. But not even she could imagine how much more there was to come. 2 days later, Amanda was discharged. But she didn't return to the bridge, or the market, or the mud house that had been taken from her. She rode in the back seat of the same SUV she hadn't recognized, now flanked by the 2 boys she had once fed when she had barely enough for herself. The drive was silent, save for the hum of the engine and Amanda's soft breathing. Her eyes drifted between the brothers. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Mothers don't need details to feel the shape of truth. When the car turned off Lekki Ape Expressway and rolled into a private estate lined with imported palms and designer stonework, Amanda leaned forward slightly. Not with curiosity, with disbelief. The mansion was wide, white, and unapologetically expensive. A fountain sparkled in the sun. The gate opened without a sound. She turned to Jacob. "This is beautiful," she said. He met her eyes. "No, Mama. This is yours." She laughed once, sharply, then looked again. "Don't joke with me," she said. "I'm not. We bought this house. For you." She shook her head, not in refusal, but in shock. A woman who had once been mocked for her grief, who had been called a witch for surviving what others couldn't, now being offered a mansion. Joshua helped her out. Her steps were small. Her posture straightened as if some part of her spirit finally remembered what dignity felt like. Inside, everything glowed. The floors, the fixtures, the faces. But Amanda barely noticed. She was too busy crying. Not from pain, but from something rarer. The realization that love, real love, had circled back. That night, they sat together at a long wooden table. Amanda ate slowly. Not because the food was unfamiliar, though it was. It was the kind of meal she used to sell ingredients for, never taste. But because she wanted to remember it. "We want to tell you everything," Jacob said. And they did. They told her about the NGO, about the scholarship, the sleepless nights coding, the mentors, the near failures, the first big contract, the platform that changed everything, the app that caught the attention of a global firm. They didn't brag. They recounted, like men who knew exactly how far they'd come and precisely who they owed. Amanda listened. Her eyes rarely blinked. Her hands occasionally reached for theirs. Her heart remained still. Full, but still. When they finished, she said only, "I am proud," then paused. But I am not surprised. She had seen what the world hadn't. Back when they had nothing, she saw what they could become. That's the curse and blessing of love. It makes prophets out of the broken. That night, she prayed again. But not to ask, only to thank. The weeks that followed were quiet, but only on the surface. Beneath the polished routines and softened luxury, something old had begun to wake in the brothers. Not ambition, that had never left, but legacy. Amanda, now stronger, would sit in the garden with her Bible open and eyes half closed. Sometimes she prayed. Sometimes she simply watched. One evening, she made a comment that felt casual. It wasn't. Your house is too quiet. Jacob smiled. We keep busy. Amanda raised an eyebrow. Busy men should not forget they were once boys who needed stories at night. The silence that followed wasn't defensive, just thoughtful. It took only a few weeks more before life answered for them. Jacob met Juliet at a conference in Abuja. She was a back-end developer with an MIT education and the expression of someone who found most things mildly amusing, including him. Joshua met Cynthia at a product launch. She was building APIs that connected hospital databases in real time and asked better questions than most investors. Neither meeting felt cinematic. No violins, just sharp dialogue, tired coffee, and something that lingered after the meetings ended. Amanda, when introduced, didn't hesitate. She hugged them both as if their futures had already been decided. Welcome, my daughters, she said. I prayed for you before I knew your names. The weddings weren't excessive. They were efficient, grand in taste, but not in noise. 2 ceremonies. 1 celebration. Lagos had seen parties, but this one made the papers. Amanda wore gold and purple, not because she needed to prove anything, but because dignity sometimes wears color. When she led them down the aisle, one on each arm, guests stood. Some wept. A few whispered apologies they'd never get to deliver. She didn't cry until the vows. Time, as always, moved. Amanda's health held steady. Her joy grew louder. When Juliet gave birth to a daughter, Amanda held the baby and whispered, "You are the echo of my answered prayers." When Cynthia gave birth to a boy 2 weeks later, Amanda laughed. God gave me balance. She rocked both children in her arms. Her smile was full, her voice steadier than it had been in years. This, she said softly, is enough. But no one ever leaves right after they say that. It happened on a soft morning. The sun had not yet turned harsh. Jacob and Joshua knocked, as they always did, with breakfast in hand. Amanda didn't answer. The door opened to stillness. Her hands rested on her chest. Her face wore peace like a crown. There were no gasps. Just the long inhale of sons who had to become men all over again. They buried her in her village. Not out of sentiment, out of respect. The SUVs returned. But this time, they carried memory. Jacob and Joshua lowered her into the ground with their own hands. She gave us everything, Jacob said. And never asked for anything back, Joshua added. The crowd was silent. Even the skeptics. That night, back in the mansion, the lights were dimmed. The children slept. The brothers sat in the nursery, watching the soft rise and fall of 2 tiny chests. She didn't die poor, Joshua said. She didn't die forgotten, Jacob replied. Outside, the city exhaled. And inside, her legacy took its first breath. The mansion in Lekki wasn't just a home. It was a statement. Marble floors, curved staircases, framed innovation awards. A koi pond the size of a public swimming pool. But for Amanda, it was simply quiet. Too quiet. Her boys were now men, her name now revered, but the sound of laughter in the halls had thinned. She had lived long enough to know what silence meant. It wasn't peace. It was absence. One evening, over dinner, Amanda placed her spoon down with surgical precision. Your house, she said, has too many rooms and not enough noise. Jacob looked up from his plate. We have guests every week. Amanda raised an eyebrow. I'm not talking about politicians. Joshua sipped water, buying time. Amanda didn't elaborate. She never had to. Her messages always came in compressed form, quiet bombs wrapped in silk. They had built J-Tech into a continental force, software that ran hospitals, financial systems, schools. They'd become symbols, the billionaire twins. But symbols are quiet. Amanda preferred sound, preferably the kind that came from small feet. Children, she said the next morning, sipping tea on the terrace. Every home needs them. Otherwise, it's just expensive furniture and echoes. The message wasn't cryptic. She was done hinting. The universe, or some benevolent data algorithm, complied. Jacob met Juliet at a cybersecurity summit in Abuja. He was there to speak. She was there to dismantle his system as part of a demonstration. She did, efficiently. And then she smiled in the quiet, confident way that made every boast in the room sound like noise. Juliet was Nigerian-American, a back-end engineer, known in certain circles as the person you called when your database caught fire. She wore sneakers to black tie events and corrected keynote speakers mid-slide. Joshua met Cynthia at a Lagos Innovation Lab. She wasn't loud. She didn't need to be. Her design spoke for her: minimal, effective, quiet power. She had launched an API that connected rural hospitals to central supply chains with fewer than 300 lines of code. Love didn't arrive with fireworks. It came through shared bugs in code, coffee-fueled deadlines, and arguments about UI design. But it stayed. Amanda liked them immediately. "You have eyes like people who've suffered," she told Juliet. "You have silence like someone who's listening," she told Cynthia. They both nodded. No nervous giggles. No forced charm. Amanda trusted that. The weddings were announced within months of each other. They didn't bother with small ceremonies. Not because they wanted attention, but because the attention was inevitable. The media named it the Billionaire Twins' double wedding. 2 brothers. 2 brides. One mother leading them down the aisle. Amanda walked slowly, arms linked with the sons she'd raised from pavement to penthouse. She wore deep indigo with gold trim. Her head wrap was regal, her posture uncompromising. Guests stood. Some cried, even those who once whispered behind her back. She didn't care. Her tears were measured. Her pride was not. The ceremonies were streamed. Hashtags trended. Analysts commented on the economic implications of such unions, as if love could be quantified in spreadsheets. Juliet's vows were sharp, layered with dry humor. Cynthia's were poetic, almost whispered. Jacob forgot a line. Joshua didn't. Amanda didn't sit the entire time. She stood like a general. She'd led them here. She would witness every second. The receptions blurred into joy. A-list musicians, governors, foreign investors. But Amanda sat in the center, unfazed, watching, measuring joy like an engineer, storing it like a librarian. When Juliet gave birth first, a girl with wide, serious eyes, Amanda held her like something she'd been expecting for decades. "You are the echo of a prayer I whispered on concrete," she said. 2 weeks later, Cynthia delivered a boy. Healthy, loud, perpetually hungry. Amanda laughed. "Balance. God gave me balance." She held both babies in her arms like they were proof, not of wealth, but of legacy. "This," she whispered, rocking them, "is wealth." She began to move slower after that. Not from illness, just from peace. She refused a medical checkup. "I don't need to be diagnosed," she said. "I need to be remembered." She told stories. Old ones. Some the twins had heard under the bridge. Others from before. She didn't speak about death, but she did start gifting things. Her wrapper collection. A cracked Bible she'd carried since her 20s. The first coin Jacob had given her the day they met. One morning, she refused breakfast. "I'm full," she said. "I have everything." They thought she was being poetic. She wasn't. The next morning, she didn't respond. The tray outside her door went untouched. Jacob knocked. Joshua followed. "Mama." No answer. Inside, Amanda lay in her favorite wrapper, her hands on her chest, her face calm, like someone who'd finished a journey and knew there was nothing left to pack. Jacob's voice broke first. Joshua followed. They held her as if warmth could be negotiated. It couldn't. Cynthia came in with the baby boy. Juliet followed, holding the girl. No one spoke. Not at first. The babies cried, perhaps sensing the stillness. Amanda was buried in her village. She had requested it once, in passing. The twins remembered. A convoy of SUVs arrived. No banners. Just people. Even her old landlord came and said nothing. Jacob and Joshua lowered her themselves. "She gave us a life," Jacob said. "Now we return it," Joshua added. There was no sermon needed. Amanda had already preached her legacy. That night, back in the mansion, the twins sat in the nursery. The children slept. "She didn't die mocked," Jacob said. "She didn't die poor," Joshua replied. They didn't speak of grief. They didn't need to. It sat with them. Outside, the compound was still. The koi swam. The lights hummed. Inside, the quiet no longer felt empty, just full of echoes. And in those echoes lived Amanda. Weeks after Amanda's burial, Lagos moved on, as cities do. Its traffic snarled. Its markets barked. Its skyline reached. But in one corner of Lekki, the mansion stood quieter, heavier, like a temple after the god has gone. Jacob returned to the office before Joshua did. Not because he was stronger, just because silence made him restless. JTech continued. The board meetings resumed. Deadlines didn't pause for grief. Investors sent condolences via email with subject lines like sorry for your loss, also Q3 forecast. But something in the company shifted. The pace didn't slow. It matured. The twins, once hungry, became deliberate. They launched a foundation in Amanda's name, not in some vague philanthropic gesture, but surgical in aim, a fund for women who raised other people's children. Not orphanages, not NGOs. Women like Amanda, informal saints with cracked hands and loud faith. Juliet built the back-end platform herself. Cynthia oversaw outreach. The first scholarship went to a boy named Emmanuel, found sleeping outside a bus terminal with his younger sister. Their mother sold oranges. She had one good wrapper. She gave it up to buy math books. Amanda would have understood. The twins didn't take salaries that year. They said it was Amanda's dividend. Media attention returned, though now with reverence. The billionaire twins had become a myth people needed to believe in. Every interview began the same way. Tell us about your mother. They did. Not with tears. With clarity. They told of a woman who fed them before she fed herself. Who never raised her voice, but raised two empires. Who buried a child, lost a house, and still managed to teach gratitude. Her grave became a site of pilgrimage. School children were brought to it. They placed bananas there, sometimes wrapped, sometimes not. Notes were left. Prayers. Promises. The mansion, once decorated with awards, slowly filled with portraits. Amanda at different stages. Amanda in motion. Amanda with a basket on her head. Amanda kneeling beside the twins' bunk beds. Amanda at the wedding, arms linked, eyes forward. And then the next generation arrived. Juliet's daughter, Ada, turned 2 with the kind of composure usually found in retired judges. She didn't cry. She negotiated. Cynthia's son, Keen, refused bedtime but adored books. He walked around with a board book in one hand and a juice box in the other, as if life were one long tech demo. Amanda would have laughed. Loudly. The twins made it a ritual to take them to the village every few months. They never stayed in hotels. Only at Amanda's old plot, now rebuilt, not extravagant, just precise. She hated waste, Jacob explained. But she loved order. Neighbors came. Some asked for blessings. Some just stared. The babies didn't care. They played in dust, climbed mango trees, and ruined every white outfit they were given. Legacy, it turns out, isn't marble or headlines. It's what your grandchildren ruin. One evening, back in Lekki, Ada climbed onto Jacob's lap with Amanda's Bible in her hands. Tell me the story, she said. Which one? Her story. So Jacob told it. The whole thing. From the bridge. From the bowl. From the whisper. Mama. He didn't censor. Children, he figured, deserve truth early. By the end, Ada was quiet. Is she in heaven? She asked. I think so. Can she see us? Maybe. Ada nodded. Then I'll wave. She walked to the window, lifted her little arm, and waved into the dark. In another room, Keen was drawing with a blue crayon. He had scribbled 2 figures, both tall, both smiling, and one smaller, rounder figure in between them with a big head wrap. Joshua looked over his shoulder. Who's that? Keen grinned. Grandmama Amanda. Joshua stared at the drawing for a long time. That night, the twins sat outside by the koi pond. The moon was full. The fish didn't care. Do you ever think about what she'd say now? Jacob asked. She wouldn't say much. She'd just raise her eyebrow. Jacob laughed. True. Silence settled. Not heavy. Not empty. Finally, Joshua said, we made it. Jacob nodded. She made it. And that, they agreed, was the truth.